I'm Eric Walker, Chair of Highlands Astronomical Society, and it's my pleasure to welcome club members, including new members and visitors from our North of Scotland sister astronomy clubs and groups. There's also a couple of first-time visitors here tonight, and we hope you'll consider joining our astronomy club soon. Now, I'll be doing this little welcome, and that'll be immediately followed by our main talk. There'll be questions and answers after that. And then there will be the club news and Astropics from the month with Pauline. There'll be a little wrap up and that'll take us to the meeting close. Now tonight, there isn't going to be a post-meeting Zoom blather tonight, as the forecast is, or at least it was, for clear moonless skies, and some of us keen and hardy members have already set up our observatories to try and observe and photograph the night sky. As usual, there won't be any breaks during the meeting, so if you need to leave, just get up and go, but keep yourself connected to the meeting so you're always there. If you have any questions for the speaker, please put them into the Q&A section at any time throughout the meeting. I'll pick those up and I'll present them to Robert as and when. If you've got any problems, click the hand icon and Lisa will get in touch with you directly via the chat. The chat for the general chit chat, it will be switched off during the main part of the meeting, but it will be switched back on near the end. Now, I've got a couple of thank yous and welcomes to make before we start tonight proper. Firstly, thank you to Rona for all her work on the committee over the years, and especially for her last long stint as club secretary, where she has been extremely diligent in making sure the rest of us have done what we said we'd do. She'll now have unlimited time to pursue her passion for live observing and variable star observing, mingled with her other interests of travelling and hill walking. Stepping right into her place is our very own Pauline Macrae, who is already wielding the club secretary's cudgel to keep us all on our toes. Welcome, Pauline. And after a massively long time carrying out this key role for us, our speaker coordinator, Pat Escott, has eventually handed that particular baton back, but remains on the committee to help support us with all the tasks and events we're planning now that we're intending to get together face to face again from time to time. Thanks, Pat, for what I know can sometimes feel like a thankless task when you're organising speakers. And welcome to Lisa Pattenden, who has enthusiastically joined the committee, and I know is considering adopting the speaker coordinator role. We'll have a chat about that soon, Lisa. And I know we make an appeal each month for help from our members, but can you please give serious consideration to this? We're desperately short of people to help with our social media update and development, and, for example, editing and publishing our meeting recordings and such like. The workload for the very few of us is fairly high just at the moment, but with a couple of additional folks, it would be much, much easier. Anyway, back to tonight's meeting. I'm going to introduce our main speaker for tonight, Professor Robert Walsh. Robert is Professor of Solar Physics in the Jeremiah Horrocks Institute at the University of Central Lancashire. He is a leading expert on the analysis of space-based solar observations coupled to computational modelling of the sun. Robert has developed many international collaborations, including being institutional lead on NASA's Marshall Space Flight Centre's Sounding Rocket Programme. Recently, his work featured in NASA's 2021 annual science calendar. Public and school outreach is the core of what Robert does. He has an impressive CV detailing all his admirable outreach projects and events. And he's now beginning a project in Rwanda to improve the teaching of science within rural schools by using astronomy as the avenue for engagement. We're very grateful, Robert, that you found the time to share some of your time and knowledge with us here in the Scottish Highlands. Robert's talk tonight is particularly relevant as we have been observing an increase in sunspot activity, prominences, and filaments on the sun in recent months. There's a notable change in space weather, which has resulted in us seeing many nights of auroral activity already this season. Robert is going to tell us how the view of our closest star has been recently transformed due to dedicated space-based observatories. Along the way, we'll psychoanalyse the sun's magnetic personality, surf along shock waves in the solar wind, and run for cover from solar storms as we try to predict the effect of space weather upon the Earth. Without further ado, I welcome Professor Robert Walsh and his talk for tonight, Living with a
Okay, folks, I lost a wee bit of the what Eric was saying there. I wonder if anyone in the committee can give me a shout to make sure you can hear me okay. Is everybody hearing me okay?
Can hear you loud and clear, Robert.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much indeed for that. It's great to be with you this year. I wish I was physically in the Highlands with you. You can sort of tell from my accent that I'm not from Lancashire. Rather, I'm from Belfast, just outside Belfast in Northern Ireland. But I spent about 12 years of my my life actually in St Andrews in Fife. So I know Scotland very well, and I'm envious that I can't actually physically be there with you. I also hope with knowing I'm from Northern Ireland, you can click into the accent a wee bit better and be able to understand maybe what I'm saying in some way. As Eric has just sort of introduced you there, we're going to be looking at what it means to live near to a star. Really, we're going to try and understand a wee bit more about the science of our sun this evening, and that's the area of expertise that I focus upon with a range of space agencies, which I'm going to sort of talk you through, chat through together this evening. So you can see the lovely movies in the background. We're going to do a number of movies and try to understand what we're actually seeing here. We're going to try and then see how that energy from the heart of the sun comes down to us here on Earth, and of course the effect that actually can have upon us. As I mentioned, I do work with NASA, and I do these sorts of things. There we go. If that's not woken you up after your dinner tonight, then I don't know what has. But this is a sounding rocket launched from White Sands, New Mexico. The sort of naval research sort of area there. And on top of that sounding rocket, there is an instrument, which I'll show you some of the results for later, that was observing the sun. And I do a lot of that as a part of one of my main projects, is to work on these instruments and try to push the boundaries of our instrumentation and hence our science knowledge with sounding rockets. A wee bit more of that in a while. So I've probably used up too much time, and I apologize for that. But I hope that you've got something from our time together tonight. Hope that you grasped something new about your closest star. And the next time that you're walking down the high street in Inverness or wherever you are, and it's a lovely sunny day, because it's always sunny when you're up in the Highlands, and you've got your designer sunglasses on and you've slapped on the suntan cream, because that's very important as well. You'll remember how important your closest star really is. I'll finish there for tonight, and thank you for listening.
Oh, Robert, that was just absolutely amazing. Those images and animations are just seriously superb. They really do help. People's understanding. I'm getting comments and brilliant talk and everything like that. It's great. We've actually got, I've got 9 questions and there's more coming in. We just don't have the time to go through those. I'm wondering if you could do me a favor, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
If I email you these questions, could you do brief answers to them? Pauline puts out a newsletter called Stargazy Pie, and we could include that little question answer set if that's okay with you. I mean,
yeah, absolutely, that's absolutely fine. And I'm sorry I went on.
No, it was brilliant. Actually, there is one question you could answer probably quite quickly: is how far is the SDO from the sun?
Well, SDO is really here at the Earth. Really, it's on a geosynchronous orbit around. Solar Orbiter, on the other hand, it's the one that goes close to the sun. It's going to go within sort of the Mercury orbit, so 0.2, 0.3 AU, depending on where it is. Actually, there's one that goes even closer than that. And that's the Parker Solar Probe. You may have heard about. And of course, that's the American one, and the Europeans want to go close, and the Americans want to go even closer. If there's any Americans on tonight, I apologize if Lisa, maybe I think Lisa from America. So I apologize, but they're going even closer still, actually, to really sample, I suppose, a star. And suppose when you get in that close, you can actually really take it. If you go to the Solar Orbiter website, it gives you a little diagram to show you where it is at this moment in time. And I think they've already done a few close flybys. I think at the moment they're just about to come into another one. So it gives you an idea what's going on.
Brilliant. Robert, can I just take this opportunity to thank you for a genuinely most interesting and captivating and a very relevant talk for us amateur observers and astrophotographers up here in these northern latitudes. I reckon I know the reason for the dip in 2020 with the solar cycle. It's because I bought myself a Lunt hydrogen alpha scope and I just put the astronomer's curse on it,
Absolutely, and I think that happens. Actually, it's the same all the time. Actually, I'm sure it does all revolve around that for what's going on. But it was a very extended minimum, and that surprised us all. I'm wondering if it'll even come out of it again. It looks like it's coming out with a vengeance.
Yeah, it does. Pre-COVID times, Robert, you'd be here with us, and you'd receive a well-deserved token of our appreciation and a thank you card designed and printed by Pauline. But we'll need to send you them via Royal Mail for now, so we'll get in touch with you regarding that. But as I say, thanks very much once again, and I'm hoping you can stay with us and experience the rest of our club meeting. You're going to see some lovely aurora pictures. I know that for certain. So thank you.
Not at all. It'll be a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
And now to the club news and Astropics from the month. As you can see, Pauline's back with us again this month to show you what our club and other amateur astronomers and observers in the north have been getting up to. There's been considerable auroral activity over the past month, and we have been capturing plenty of images to show you. So, Pauline, I'm going straight over to you.
Thank you very much, Eric. Right, this evening I thought we would have a look at the constellation of Draco. It's very high in the sky, and it's a circumpolar constellation, so that we see it all night long and all year long. And as you can see, it's fairly close to the Little Bear, which is Ursa Minor. Now, Draco is thought to be the dragon Ladon, who guarded the golden apples in the garden of the Hesperides until Hercules came along, killed the dragon, and stole the golden apples. Draco itself, even though it's quite indistinct and it's a long constellation, is quite fun to find. Now, a lot of people might disagree with the word fun and maybe say it's more of a challenge, but actually, once you found it, it's easy to find again. What's important is to find your signposts. So that's where we have got the plough. We have got the Little Bear, and we also need to use Vega. So we start with Vega. Remember, Vega is in the summer triangle. So it's one of the 3 stars in the summer triangle with Deneb there. And you want to move northwards towards Polaris. As you move past towards the north, you are going to pass these 2 stars here. And these are relatively bright stars, and they form Draco's eyes. If you can find the eyes, you can find the rest of the constellation. So the next thing to do is to make sure you know exactly where the little bear is. Remember, you can use the pointers to find Polaris, and then you'll find the other stars in the little bear relatively faint. In fact, really quite faint. But these 2 are noticeable. You can see these 2 stars here quite easily. So let's go back to the eyes. The other 2 stars here form the head. This one I can't see from my relatively light polluted back garden. But persevere with the other stars, because remember, with looking straight up in the sky, this is a darker area. So now move north as though you were going to go past Polaris, but don't. You need to stop at this point here, and there'll be a number of stars. And this is where you double back on yourself. And you should now have these 2 stars of the little bear quite close to the body of the dragon. And then it winds its way around. This is the tail that lies between the little bear and the plow. So relatively easy. Well, it is when you've got constellation lines, but when you are when you encounter a beautiful star-filled sky, it's quite daunting to find a constellation. So where do you start? Well, the first thing you need, of course, is to orientate yourself. And I know from Eric's all sky camera, this is north. So here we have the plow. And I'm just going to get rid of this, so I've got a pointer now. So from the plow, we use the pointers and we find Polaris. And now you can just make out the little bear. So these are the 2 stars you need to keep your eye on, as well as Polaris. Here's Vega, one of the 3 stars in the summer triangle. So move north from Vega. So we're going to move towards Polaris. And here are the 2 eye stars of Draco. And there is the other 2 stars in Draco's head. So you can actually see this one now that I can't see from my garden. So you use this star here. This is Draco's neck. Up you go. Here's a few stars. This is where you turn back on yourself. Keep going round. Ignore this star here. You want to just go down and through. There's the plow. There are the 2 stars to keep an eye on in the little bear. So it's basically a long snake. And once you find Draco once, then you can find it again. And while we're here, there's Cassiopeia. This is Cygnus, the swan, or the Northern Cross, if you like. Here we have the square of Pegasus. If we take the bright stars that form part of Andromeda, the constellation of Andromeda, we go from the corner star of Pegasus, count 1, 2, and then 2 fainter stars, 1, 2, and that is the Andromeda galaxy. So there we go. Let's go back to this again. So, as I've said, these are the eye stars that make up Draco, part of Draco's head. This is the brightest star in the constellation. It's magnitude 2.2, so none of them are brighter than that. But if you can find Alcor in the plow, I should have actually gone back here. If you can find the double star in the plow, which consists of Alcor and Mizar, then Alcor is magnitude 4. And if you can see that, then you can see the majority of the stars in the constellation of Draco. There are just a few which are fainter than magnitude 4. This is the star which, as I said, I couldn't see from my back garden, but easily found in binoculars. And this is a lovely double star. The two stars are really close together, both white, both the same magnitude, definitely worth hunting for. This star takes a little bit longer to find. Again, it's a double star, bit wider, but the colors are really nice and contrasting. One's yellow, one's blue, but you won't see those through binoculars. That's where a telescope will come into it. Then you can see the contrasting colors, and you can see a close companion of the blue star. Now, I haven't been able to find this double star. Here we are, it's an omission or confession. It is within this, it's the corner of this triangle that you get here. But I think part of the difficulty is because you have to look up really high in the sky. And when you've got binoculars that are wobbling around all over the place, it's difficult. And I should take my own advice and get out my deck chair. This is a very well-known planetary nebula. This is the Cat's Eye Nebula. So that is a dead star that's puffed off its outer layers and produced this wonderful planetary nebula. Now, through an amateur telescope, it's going to look like this green, bluey disk. But of course, through Hubble, there is the Cat's Eye Nebula, absolutely beautiful. You can see here it's surrounded by concentric rings of dust, which it puffed out just before the star died. We've got the white dwarf in the center, and then this is the planetary nebula part itself. And the fact that it's so complicated could suggest that it was once a binary star. M102 is a Messier object, and it's known as the spindle galaxy, and it's an example of a lenticular galaxy. So there it is. Looks, how Eric described it as a needle, which is quite right. And through Hubble, we have got this. So a lenticular galaxy is a cross between a spiral, which has a disk, it's got this dust lane, and it's got a bulge, but it has no spiral arms. And then looks a bit like an elliptical, except that, well, and with just as with an elliptical galaxy, there's no gas for star production. And this one is really quite a beautiful galaxy to look at. Again, you'll need a telescope. It's got quite a bright center, so you should be able to pick it up in an amateur telescope. So this is what we're going to need to do at some point. Through Hubble, this is what it looks like. So we've got lots of dust lanes, a lot of pinky bits and bluey bits, and these are star formation areas. There are a number of galaxies that might be worth checking out if you have a telescope. But I thought I would mention this one. Again, quite a famous galaxy, a well-known galaxy. Unlikely we would see it, it's magnitude 14.4. But this is the tadpole galaxy, and indeed it looks like a tadpole. It's also known as a peculiar or interacting galaxy. And another galaxy will have come along at some point, and with its gravity has managed to pull this enormous stream of stars out from within the original galaxy. And this tail is about 280,000 light years long. And I'm just going to mention the alpha star in Draco. This is called Thuban, and you'll have probably recognized the name Thuban from the pyramids and the Egyptians, because at that time it was the pole star. And I think that's why it's been given the designation alpha, which is usually reserved for the brightest star in the constellation, which, as we know, is this one. And the reason that Thuban is no longer the pole star is because of something called precession. The Earth spins like a top and it wobbles around on its axis over 26,000 years. And so the pole star is always changing. You'll see that the Earth, in effect, draws this enormous circle in space. So this is our pole star right now. But 4,000 to 6,000 years ago, Thuban was the pole star. So this is what the sky looks like in this month. And excuse me, we still have the summer triangle beautifully visible. Up here, we've got the northern sky with the Plough, Little Bear, and Draco. And then we have Jupiter and Saturn still in the sky within the constellation of Capricornus. Now we have the new moon on 6th, which is really convenient for a minor meteor shower called the Draconids. So I think you can guess where this one comes from. And then we have the full moon on the 20th of October. Mercury becomes visible in our skies on the near the end of October. It's at its best on the 25th of October when it's at its highest, and it has a magnitude of minus 0.3 at that time. So it's brighter than Saturn. 7:30 in the morning should get you to see it, hopefully. And then as it begins to get a bit lower, it gets a tiny bit brighter before fading and sinking in the east. Now you'll notice that the ecliptic is really quite steep. And this gives us another chance to see the zodiacal light. And because the ecliptic is steep, of course, this is one reason why it's easier to see Mercury this time. And I spoke about the zodiacal light back in the springtime when the ecliptic was nice and steep in the evening. So that was when you should have gone out to look for the zodiacal light. I did, and I didn't see it. So you do need an extremely dark sky to hunt it down. And it's due to light reflecting or sunlight reflecting off the dust that's within the plane of our solar system. So this is the ecliptic in the autumn morning sky, and you can see it's shallow in the evening sky. So this is the opposite way round to what it was like in spring. And of course, a shallow ecliptic does not help us see Venus. So Venus is still very tricky to see. However, there is a waxing moon that passes by on the 8th, 9th, and 10th of October. So if you can't find Venus in any other way, and it's clear, and you see the waxing moon, you might get a glimpse of Venus. Jupiter and Saturn are, of course, clearly visible in the southern sky, but they are reasonably low down because of this shallow ecliptic. So it's quite possible they could be hidden by houses or maybe trees for yourself. If you've not yet located them, there is the moon, which passes by on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of October. But Jupiter is shining at a brilliant minus 2.6 at the moment. And Saturn is easily visible because it's not that far away from Jupiter, so you can pick it up quite nicely. And this is what I was talking about when I mentioned the Draconids. And I thought I might as well talk about it because we have looked at the constellation of Draco. And the Draconids appear to emanate from the head of Draco. Unfortunately, it's a minor shower. You only see maybe 10 meters an hour if you're lucky. But of course, if you're hunting for Draco, then you've got a chance to actually see some of these meters at the same time. They are active between the 6th and 10th of October, so not very long. The peak is the 8th of October, and the peak time is about 7:30 in the evening. Now, some club news. Well, Eric has already said Rona has resigned as secretary. I've taken over, and again, it's a thank you for all Rona's hard work as secretary and as a committee member. And of course, we're delighted to welcome Lisa to the committee. Now, I didn't mention Pat, sorry, Pat, because she's still on the committee, even though she's no longer doing the job that she was doing before. But we, as Eric said, we would still really like one more committee member, please. Now, our star party was a bit of, well, it was clouded out, it was wet. It didn't work last month. So we're going to try again this Friday at 8 o'clock in the evening. It's still just light enough to set up, so that's fine. The weather forecast doesn't look very good, so it may be that we'll cancel and then Saturday looks better. So if Friday is wet and cloudy, then we'll hold it on Saturday. Please don't forget to bring your own food and drink and equipment like binoculars if you can. We are limiting activity in the main room simply to remain COVID safe. And we still intend to look at Jupiter and Saturn, help where we can with astrophotography and polar aligning. And if Dave makes it on a Saturday, then you might even get some astro sketching. And here we have the wonderful photographs from everybody. So we're starting with one from Alan Tuff in Sigma, which is our Elgin club. And this is of the satellite Landsat 9, which was launched aboard an Atlas V rocket. And what we're looking at is the center upper stage. And I know that it was visible in this area because Gordon Macrae of Caithness Astronomy Group also managed to get a photograph of this particular object. And the gallery would not be the same without one of Dave's brilliant moon photographs. And you can see that this is a crescent, a very thin crescent, because new moon was the 7th of September. And you will also notice that it was in the morning sky, because that's the east and the sun would be just on the way to rising. So of course, this part of the moon is lit up. If it's evening time, it would be this part of the moon because the sun is down here and the moon is following the sun down. Now, nearly a month later, I took this picture just out of the window because we had one of those really fantastic blue sky mornings and the moon just looked gorgeous. This is one of Eric's all-sky camera star trails. And here is Jupiter, and I'm pretty sure this must be Saturn. This is a lovely photograph of Jupiter and 3 of the Galilean moons from Kevin Williamson of Stornoway Astronomical Society. There are only 3 moons, so the other one could be out here, or it might be in front of or behind Jupiter. And this is a fabulous image of Jupiter and 3 of the Galilean moons. Unfortunately, we don't know who took it. So again, the 4th moon is most likely in front of Jupiter. We just don't see it. So this is either Callisto or Io. I think it's moved round and it'll be therefore moving out, but I'm not absolutely sure. And now we have a lot of wonderful aurora photographs. The Glendale Aurora app made by Andy Stables in Sky is really good. It's very accurate. Although, quite honestly, we have our own very special aurora app in the form of Lisa, who is an aurora hunter. And as soon as there's a clear sky, she's out, especially if there's been a forecast of an aurora. So we then get notified by the WhatsApp group, and we get to know about the aurora if she can actually see it, which is fantastic. So this was taken on the 8th of September, and you can see the red in the sky quite high above the plough here. So there's the plough. And then you can see also in Dennis's photograph, the red high up in the sky above the plough, as well as all these incredible rays. And Dennis has a lovely, very dark sky site in Tain. So he gets some fantastic photographs of the aurora. So on the 13th, there was a little bit of aurora in the background here. We've got the Milky Way, And here are the Pleiades. So this must be the eastern end of the aurora. And on the 17th of September, it was just a fantastic night. And we've got a few photographs from Eric. You see this red ray that's going up into the sky here. And I love this really bright auroral band from which many of the rays seem to be sparking, if you like. And this, we think is, or Eric thinks, and I think I agree with him, is Steve, which is strong thermal emission velocity enhancement. So it's actually not the aurora, but it tends to occur when there is an aurora on. And Eric has also got a series of stills with his all-sky camera. And if you look over in the north, you can see all the red rays from this very strong green auroral arc down here. And this is a movie that he's put together. Look towards here and you can see all those red rays. And that was about 11:30, and we're going to see it again in case you missed it the first time. There we are. Absolutely extraordinary. It's really, really good. So I didn't see the start of the aurora, but when I went out at about 10 o'clock, there was a wide green band in the sky, which was really quite high up. It's as high as I have ever seen it from where I am. And it just stayed like that for ages. And in fact, it got to the point where I gave up, went upstairs with all my equipment, and it really kicked off with these fantastic rays, these red rays that were shooting high into the sky. And you're always told never leave an aurora because it will restart. Well, usually. And of course, that's exactly what happened, which is why it's through an open window at the moment. So I dashed downstairs and managed to get some photographs. And this, if my processing was any better, I'm sure I would be getting the red up there. And I have got a nice red ray going up. I don't know whether that's Steve or actually part of the aurora. And then it began to die down. And that was about 10:30, 22:11. And then the following night, we had a faint aurora again, but Lisa also managed to capture this moonbow, which is quite extraordinary and extremely rare. This is a lovely photograph that she's taken of the Milky Way. There is Altair in the constellation of Aquila. There's Vega. And look what we've got here, the head of Draco. And this is part of his body. So you see, now you know where to look for Draco. You'll be spotting it in the sky quite easily. Now, Lisa, this is on the west. So Lisa panned north with her camera and she managed to capture this aurora. And then there were a number of aurorae after that, 29th, 30th of September, and also the 1st of October. And this is by Alan Tuff from Sigma again. This was the 30th, really bright aurora. I think this is my favorite image because I love this purple ray that is sprouting out of the green that's below. And it's really very ethereal, this image. And wow, of course, the further north you go, because this was taken from North Ronaldsay by Ian Hall, the brighter the aurora gets. Although if you don't have any light pollution, this was by Ian Nicholson, who went up to Wick. And he's from the Aberdeen Society. Sue Shackleton in North Ronaldsay. And look at this on the first, absolutely spectacular. And this was just a couple of nights ago, so Lisa managed to photograph this. But of course, with Sue being that much further north, she managed to get a bit more of the aurora. There was a lot of cloud around that night, but even so, she has captured the images through the cloud. And then the very last photograph is not of the aurora, it's of this. This is a deep sky object. It's the Veil Nebula in Cygnus, and it's a supernova remnant. And this has been taken by Connor. It's the first time I think he's contributed a photograph, and my goodness, what a spectacular photograph it is. It's just beautiful. And finally, this has been contributed by Eric. I'll leave you to read it. And that is so true. So thank you very much, everyone.
Well, thank you so much for that, Pauline. I can assure you the heaviest thing in the world, it doesn't matter what size of dog it is, it doesn't matter its mass, it's always the heaviest thing to pick up. But oh, that was absolutely wonderful. It's perfect as usual. It was a bit of night sky education, wonderful images. I mean, absolutely wonderful images. And hopefully we're going to get the clear skies to enable us to get out and about tonight, looking up and observing and photographing the dragon-related wonders of our night sky. Yeah. The Glendale-app's saying that the aurora, well, it's charging up at the moment. It's growing, so that's a good sign. And the all sky camera is showing that it's you know, there's the clouds, the light hazy clouds coming in and going, but it's more going than it was. So I'm dying to get out to my observatory.
You better get going then.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Robert, I know Robert's still on. Thank you very much for that. And I hope you enjoyed the aurora pictures, which are very, very relevant to the talk that you gave us tonight. Anyway, that is us about wrapped up. I just want to thank all of you. Thanks once again for coming along. I hope it's clear for the star party that's planned for Friday or Saturday. Until the next time, clear skies and keep looking up.